Welcome back. Many of you will recall that the last time we gathered together like this was June 20th of 2019. And little did we know, with all that ha about superstition and luck, and little did we know what was coming. So a lot has happened since then, but many things remain the same. As we say in Gamblers Anonymous, we share our experience, our strength, and our hope to help others recover. So likewise, as advocates, professionals, providers, community partners, industry, policymakers, professionals of all walks of life, we too have to share our experience, our strength, and our hope to continue to do what we do, to prevent or reduce the impact of problem gambling in the state of Nevada. That's the goal. Our success is always based on what we do together, not what we do individually. So today, after a long pause, we are back. And we are back to reconnect, recharge, and renew our own commitment to the work that we do, to the people we serve, and to each other, because ultimately, it's the connections that make everything happen.
Here's one that I often point out to my gamblers. You've had multiple unsuccessful attempts to try to abandon your problematic gambling. And yet here you are, again, in the therapist's office, trying. And have you ever looked at perseverance as a resource? Like, wow, so many people would have given up by now, but here you are, and you're persevering. And to try and fail is better than to try and fail to try again. Right? Yeah. I said, what if I freed up 6 hours of your week? Would you commit that 6 hours to exercise? And they kind of chuckled, sure, Dr. Green, sure. I knew the People's grocery store that she shopped at, and I said, okay, great. For 1% of the invoice price, they'll actually deliver it. So let's go on the website, let's set it up. We creatively kind of bought her more time. Not only that, unbeknownst to me, she's like, okay, I'll start working out. And she did. She started working out every week. She was true to her word. And she came back and she said, actually, she goes, Dr. Reese, she goes, you know what? She goes, I really like the on-site, the ordering offline. She goes, because what I notice is I'm actually, I'm always looking for good prices, and I notice like there's stuff on the website that when I'm in the grocery store, I don't even notice it on the shelf, and I'm actually saving more money by shopping online. And so that 1% that I have to pay the grocery store in order to, I'm actually, overall, I'm saving more money. And then she kind of said with a smile, so can I use that money to gamble? I said, hell no, that's a hard no. Are we recording this? Because I've kind of had a potty mouth a little bit during this presentation. I apologize, I don't want to offend anybody. And effective communication skills, I'll do this also around when there's relational conflict in relation to the problem gambling, helping them communicate effectively with romantic partners. If I'm working with a romantic partner, there's a whole thing there where they try to be assertive and say that they're uncomfortable and this and that, and then they get shut down by the problem gambler, marginalized and so forth. Or the problem gambler, because being held accountable activates their shame, then they go to their anger as a defense mechanism against the shame, right? And that's the way they try to control being held accountable. And part of that is kind of that whole, I'm so broken, I feel so broken already, I can't handle one more thing being wrong with me. So if you try to hold me accountable for anything, I've got to get angry to shut that down so I don't have to deal with one more thing I'm not doing right.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's so nice to actually see everyone, see all of the faces that aren't in the little squares, and to be able to dole out some hugs today. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. I think most of us here know that in 2018, Supreme Court struck down the Professional and Amateur Sports Protection Act, which basically prevented all other states from having legalized forms of sports betting in their jurisdictions. And so, less than 3 years later, sports betting is legal in 30 states. If you are an NCAA student athlete, you are not to wager on any sports that the NCAA has a championship event and at any level. So not only can you not wager on college sports, most sports you can't wager on amateur sports or professional sports, and yet nearly a quarter of the men, and about, again, 5% of women, report having done just that in the year prior to taking the survey.
My students are 17 to 20 years old. So I have to bring the casino to them. There's no field trip, there's no go to IGT's showroom, there's none of that. So I have to bring the experience to them. But the major thing that I want to make sure everybody understands, in my first official lecture, we do responsible gaming. I don't wait for week 16 to do responsible gaming. When I stand in front of my students on the first official lecture, I tell them, this is my quote. My goal is to create a gaming student that resembles a high-performance sports car. We will install the brakes before we add the gas pedal, okay?
I don't mind telling you that the past year plus has been an uphill climb and extremely difficult. For New Frontier, we waited almost a year before we had an outbreak on the unit. And so we were shut down for about 7 weeks. It was a difficult time, harder on our clients. What makes New Frontier is the family. We ended up with 16 positive clients and 7 positive staff. When you're running an outpatient and a residential unit, there were so many parts of treatment that we had to learn. And it was a heavy lift. I was pushing that peanut uphill with my nose for too long. COVID dealt us a pretty severe blow. Now we are slowly reopening. And to be honest with you, I can see the change in our clients already. You know, they're now starting to blossom as well because new things are being brought back into the program that had been there before.
The one thing that I would say at the Reno Problem Gambling Center changed the most is we went back to a whole lot of telephone use. Donna and I have been going through files. Hi, Donna. We've been going through files of our many hundreds of former Reno Problem Gambling Center clients and family members and calling them and saying, how you doing? And that's the first thing I could think of when we were trying to do the outreach and missing the people that weren't showing up was I thought, I wonder how everyone's doing. And so simple phone calls, right? And many folks who have been in recovery for a time started edging toward relapse for a variety of reasons, even when the casinos were closed for 3 months. And also, people were suffering, and many of them in silence. So by simply pulling up the old 500-pound telephone and reinstituting that in our treatment and reminding people to make more phone calls every day and to practice the one thing that we kind of copyrighted at the Reno Problem Gambling Center is the 4-part feeling statement. When blank, I feel blank, I want blank, I need blank, and I'm willing to do blank. So we were asking our clients to practice that with themselves and their higher power or with another person and to just up their communication level with the people who they trust and the God of their understanding, as well as each other in recovery.
I've invited this wonderful panel. My brothers and sisters in recovery are brave enough to be here with you. And, you know, Keith White said, he's the executive director of the National Council on Problem Gambling. The very first time that I was poking my head up and saying, maybe I should talk about this, he said words that resonate in my ear to this day, which is, the problem with people in recovery is they're so anonymous, they're invisible. So these brave souls are not invisible, and why should they not be happy to share their experience and hope with you?
I'm Rob, I'm a compulsive gambler.
Hi, Rob.
And it's right, I do have a little over 7 years, but I count them in days, not years, and I have 2,579 days today. People still love coming to the meetings, like you said, we have people from out of state that come to the meetings and love it because Vegas has more recovery than anybody else. People say, how can you have gambling recovery in Vegas. And we have the most recovery because we have people like me and Chris that have 20 and 30 years. And they're willing to share their wisdom with us.
What stressors did you face and how did you deal with them during the pandemic?
My name's Chef Lou.
Hello.
I'm a grateful, compulsive gambler in recovery. When I first walked into the program, I had $236 in my pocket, and I had a $10,000 payroll. So when this pandemic hit, it all of a sudden brought me back to a pretty dark place in my life. All of a sudden, money was going to go out. There was nothing coming in. But understand that there are 10 other individuals that work for me that all have 4 to 6 to 8 people at home, requiring them to bring home a paycheck. I just felt as if I was getting on my feet, grabbing a grasp of what was really happening in my life. And now all this new perspective on this shit isn't about me, this is about them too. And prepare myself to do whatever it took. Just what these 12 steps taught me. Every one of my employees got paid for every single day. Understanding this shit isn't about me has been one of the most powerful things that this second year has given to me. But today, because of this pandemic, it's given me an opportunity to flip the script.
Figured we'd close out today the same way we closed out 2 years ago, and then that's enough of all this talk about 2 years of pandemics and shutdowns, and we're gonna lions and tigers and bears are mine. We're gonna move on. But the reason that I invited Alan to do this with me, and the reason that we haven't really had a conversation about it, is because what we're going to present to you is pretty much what we've been doing on our COVID vacation. We've had a lot of conversation in the last year and a half. We just haven't had a lot of time to be in a room together to have these conversations. And so part of our goal with this conference was really, as we said, let's just get reconnected, let's recharge, let's wrap up, let's catch up, but we need to renew our sense of where we're going. But we want to talk a little bit about the reality, because there's a lot going on, and we want you guys to be aware of it.
Let's talk a little bit about what's happening in the industry, and a couple of these issues have come up in a couple of cases several times. I want to talk a bit about the expansion of sports gambling, online sports gambling. If you were to go to a basketball game in Washington, D.C., there is a sports book inside the arena. There is going to be a sports book inside every major arena, probably in the next decade. Sports gambling is not only becoming ubiquitous, it's becoming normalized. And it's becoming normalized inside the arena. But there on the Nitron, on the big scoreboard, right, they have in-game odds. Thinking about what you're dealing with a 9-year-old son and any of you who have kids and you're going to games and you're trying to teach your kids about what's going on, right? What does it mean to throw a curveball as opposed to a changeup? What does it mean when there's icing as opposed to offside? What does it mean when the team is a 3-2 favorite? It says it right there on the scoreboard. I can tell you the Major League Baseball, you know how they put up the picture of the guy who's coming up to bat and it says he's 1 for 2 tonight, his batting average is such and such. You know that they're getting ready to put up these plus 150 to get ahead. And just so we're clear, that's literally what they're going to do. They're talking about it, they're planning for it. So we're going to have a different kind of mindset about how we deal with sports gaming in society. The rapid acceptance of cashless payment systems, I've been told that cashless is already an inappropriate term, it's already antiquated. Digital payment systems. Because cash is basically antiquated and no longer necessary. We are working with some of the payment processors, not gambling companies, but the payment processors, to get their data of their gambling transactions to try and understand what this actually looks like. I believe, Rob, it was you who suggested that, you know, the fact that you can use your phone at a slot machine or a table and it goes right to your debit card, and this could be horrible. It can, you're right. However, all of a sudden, remember we talked about 44 states and 44 different exclusion and all of that, and it's horrible. It's a patchwork. With a payment processor, you put in one social security number and that person will never be able to use a credit card or a debit card. And the question becomes, how does that actually work? Who turns that technology on? What laws do you need to clear to make that happen? You know, again, how does it work? Is it the payment processor? Is it the bank? Is it the casino? Does everyone start doing this when you start talking about it?
Always that I want to do is acknowledge our sponsors, because if we didn't have the support that we have, we could not do this conference the way that we do it. So I'm going to just ask anybody who is here representing one of our sponsors, when I say the sponsor name, just please also wave so people know that our sponsors don't just give us money to pay for things. Our sponsors participate because they're part of our field. They're part of the work that we do, and they contribute in many ways besides just helping us to financially afford to do this. So Caesars Entertainment. Do I have Caesars Entertainment in the room yet? Well, they'll be here. My eyes are glaring over. Okay. MGM Resorts. AGEM, Association of Gaming Equipment Manufacturers. Nevada Resort Association. Now that covers anybody who works in a casino and a member of the Nevada Resort Association. And of course, the state of Nevada through the Problem Gambling Fund. Yay, Sam!
So it's in the binder. That's the answer to almost everything, isn't it?
And I hope that by attending these conferences and by meeting so many of you and learning from your perspectives, I can do my job in the best way possible.
And it becomes sort of like a family here. And so, Nevada State Conference, that's my pitch. Always come to the conference. It's always a wonderful conference. And the council does a fantastic job in these conferences. Thank you.